Oh, we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Valerie Gupte from People Matters, and we are back with another exciting session of our webcast in partnership with Right Selection on the topic Creating a Great Place to Work Lessons from Building a Service Excellence Culture. Creating the right workplace environment is key to a successful business. Sustaining this success means constantly uplifting and enabling your employees to succeed. This webcast this afternoon will give us some answers to the questions such as what is the role of the HR department, what is the collective responsibility of each person in the company, and how can HR as a function engage multiple stakeholders to build a culture that attracts and retains the greatest talent? To share an expert's perspective, we have today with us Ron Kaufman, the New York Times best-selling author of Uplifting Service, the proven path to delighting your customers, colleagues, and everyone else you meet. He's also the co-founder of Up Your Service. For more than 3 decades, Ron Kaufman has helped companies build a culture of uplifting service that delivers outstanding business results year after year. Ron is one of the world's most sought after educators and consultants and business thought leaders and also has been a motivational keynote speaker on the topic of achieving superior service. He has also been featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and USA Today. We're excited to have him share his views in today's webcast, and we have saved some time for you to ask your questions to him at the end of the webcast. For those who are tuning in live, you can simply post your questions at any time during the session in the comment section on your right side of the screen, and we'll try to respond to as many questions as time allows. Or you can always get back in touch with Ron if the time does not permit. Now we have an exciting topic to discuss on this webcast today. So without any further delay, let me call upon Ron and ask him to just tell us about yourself a bit. Hi,
Great.
Ron. Welcome to the webcast.
Great to be with you, Valerie. Great to be with you, fans of People Matters. I know many of you are in India, but some are coming in from elsewhere around the world. I'm in Singapore today, which is my home base, and I'm just so delighted to have this chance to be able to be with you and work with you. I prepared a few slides in answer to each of the questions Valerie will be asking me today. So let me just start by saying, yes, I am a professional keynote speaker. I travel around the world. This is what I do, helping to uplift the spirit and practice of service all over the world. And yes, I wrote the New York Times best-selling book called Uplifting Service. I also created the company that Valerie mentioned called Up Your Service. And I'll show you the URL at the end of this webinar where you can find a lot of great free resources that are there, but you can probably figure it out. It's upyourservice.com. Now, something that you would not know about me unless I tell you is that I also have a hobby that I share with my wife, and that is that we are extremely avid scuba divers. Can you see the picture there, Valerie?
Yes, I can see it.
I'm the one on the bottom.
Oh.
This is an example of where we were last week, and we do this regularly throughout the year. It's really one of the great joys and pleasures we have being on the planet. Something else to know is that I've been out here in Asia Pacific now for 29 years, and I am now a citizen of the country of Singapore. This is now home base for me. I've visited India more than 100 times. Now, what you may not realize is that there was actually a time in life, if you go back in my history, when I had hair. I didn't look like this. I looked like that guy in the middle because I was captain of the Brown University Ultimate Frisbee team. And if you've ever heard of that sport or seen that sport played called Ultimate Frisbee, I'm probably the only person you're ever going to know who's actually in the Ultimate Frisbee Hall of Fame. And the reason I am is because I'm the guy who took the rules to countries in Europe and then China and the Soviet Union. And so the 50th anniversary of the sport was just celebrated. And we had a little Hall of Fame recognition ceremony. And, you know, the community worldwide decided I belonged in the Hall of Fame. Happy to be with you today. Let's get on with the webinar. Valerie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ron, for that colorful introduction. It's great to know more about you, and great to see you appreciate nature through scuba diving. So getting back to the topic, let me just dive right in and ask you the first question. So when we talk about, service excellence culture, I was
Yeah,
wondering if you could actually define it for us
sure.
and kind of highlight why is it important in an organization's context. Over to
Excellent.
you,
Excellent.
Ron.
Excellent. Good. So, you've used three words there: service, excellence, culture. And all three of them have to be taken quite seriously in order to answer your question. So let me bring up some slides again and we'll take a look. If we ask the fundamental question, what is service? And you actually put that question out to 100 different people in business, you're going to hear so many different answers. You're going to hear make people happy, do what people want, give them what they need, treat other people the way you would like to be treated. The customer is always right. The customer is king. I mean, hello, we need actually a better and more effective definition just for the word service before we can even get to the idea of a service excellence culture. So what is service? Well, I think we can agree that service means taking action. You have to do something in order for somebody to say that you served someone else. So service is taking action for what purpose? Well, it's to create an outcome. It's an outcome that someone else will want or need or benefit from or prefer or hope for or desire or pay for, something that someone else will value. So the definition of service that I wrote is this: service is taking action to create value for someone else. And the moment we present that, whether it's to people in the boardroom, the CEO level suite, the supervisors, the managers of the front line, they go, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's all this stuff I do with the process and procedures, but the purpose of that is to create value for someone else. Now, that someone else could be external, like a customer or a client, but it could also very well be internal. It could be a colleague in the same department. It could be somebody in a different department or a different division or on another shift. But at least now we have a definition of service. So then what is service excellence? Well, if service is taking action to create value for someone else, service excellence is taking the next action that will create more value for the someone else that you serve. Service excellence is taking the next step that creates more value for somebody else. And a service culture is an entire environment where people are hired and they're communicated with and they're compensated and they're encouraged and they're enabled and they're reinforced and they're educated to be able to provide high value. So what's the relationship between these two things, service excellence and service culture? Well, you could have an individual who is a service superstar, a hero, who gives excellent service, even if the culture of the company is not an excellent service culture. That's possible, but it's not sustainable. For that to be sustainable, you have to actually build the culture. So why bother doing it in the organization of the 300 or 400 people that are now on the webinar? Well, you may have a bunch of different reasons, and here are the ones that we see most ordinarily. Number one, the competition is doing it. If you don't step up and improve your service, that's the service excellence, and build an environment that continually sustains and reinforces that, the competition will get away from you. Number two, your customers expect more. Your customers expect you to do a better job tomorrow and a week later and a month later and next year than you're doing right now. So you have to keep stepping up. Number three, the people who work for you actually need to work in an environment where they're fulfilled, where they're satisfied, where they themselves are uplifted. Otherwise, they're going to leave you and go somewhere else. Number four, you want to make more money. Well, how are you going to differentiate, make more money when the competition has pretty much what you've got too? You can do it if the service experience is actually better. By the way, that's the Singapore Airlines story, because they fly the same aircraft, Boeing and Airbus, and they find to fly in and out of the same airports, but they can charge more and their airplanes are more full, not only because they deliver excellence in service, but because everybody knows that that will be consistent because they have an excellent service culture. And then finally, you want your customers to be loyal. So the question you were asking me is, what is a service excellence culture and why is it important in the context? And I think right there you can see not only what is a culture of service excellence, but also why it's so important in the competitive world today. Valerie?
That is very true, Ron. I mean, in the organization's context, it's really important to actually build that service excellence culture. And which brings me to the next question about how within an organization, there's a growing emphasis on treating employees now as customers.
Yeah.
So, what can talent leaders or HR professionals learn from this research on customer service excellence? And what are some of the pointers that they can take away?
Okay, let's take a look at this together. I'm going to pop back over to the slides again. This is where we left off. These are like the reasons why, yeah? But now you're actually asking me the question, like, what can HR professionals learn from research on customer service excellence? And here's one of the key things. I've selected a case study to be able to actually help you see what I'm talking about. One of the most important lessons that we've learned is that you cannot only improve customer service without also improving the quality of service that is experienced inside the company. And that means from department to department, from head office to branch, from one division to another, from human resources to all of the people who work in the organization. Sometimes you even think and talk about them as your internal customers. We'll come back to that later on. But here's an example of an organization where the external customers, it's an IT organization, information technologies, has external customers like banks and airlines and hospitals and governments. Inside the company are the account managers, the business stakeholders. Well, that's clearly an external service relationship, and we want to deliver excellence in service there. But now let's go over to who's supporting the business stakeholder. Oh, well, that's everybody else inside the company that does these specialist areas, whether it's in consumer, group enterprise, group digital, et cetera, and they are supported by domain experts in all of these different technical areas where the company needs to have expertise within the group. Now, they are also supported by external outsourced providers. So for example, Amazon Web Services or additional capacity for call centers. So let's look at this whole thing again. Where is service happening? And where is service excellence important? Well, certainly it's going to be important between the external customer and the stakeholder, but we also have internal service here. We have internal service here. We have internal to an external provider here. We have service going on between the different domains depending upon the complexity of the issue. And during resolution of an issue, we may even need to have those domain experts working directly with the So now let's improve service. Let's go for excellence. Where do we need to focus? Here? Of course. But it can't just be over here. It's going to have to be the entire organization. So one of the most important lessons that HR professionals can learn from research on customer service excellence is that the quality of service inside the organization, amongst and between colleagues, between departments, between shifts, between divisions, that's one of the most critical places if you're in HR that you're going to have to focus your attention. We'll come back to later in terms of what sequence you should do that, like who comes first. Should you improve the internal service or should you focus on improving the external service? But right there, I think I put my finger on one of the most important lessons from customer service research is that you've got to have a great team inside to deliver that on a consistent and improving basis. Valerie?
Very, very well put, Ron. I mean, just the way that you divided it into, internal customer service and external customer service.
Hey, Valerie, I lost you.
Let me come back to the.
I got you. Yeah.
Awesome. So after the lesson of internal versus external service and how to combine those, may I ask you that based on your interactions with the business community, what is the one thing that you see employers get wrong about a service culture? Right. One mistake that they.
Yeah, very good, very good. And just briefly, I mean, that goes back to this issue again of, what they get wrong is they say, I want to improve customer service. And so they say, let's go train the people who work with the customer. Let's go provide more customer service training to the front line. And they forget, or they ignore, or they don't realize how critically important the internal service is. If you don't improve the quality of service that your customer-facing employees are receiving from HR, from IT, from finance, from manufacturing, from facilities, from everybody else inside the organization, if you don't give those people better service, but you ask them to give the customer better service, that's a recipe for high levels of frustration. Now, that's not always understood by people who are in leadership positions. And so Harvard Business Review found out about our approach. And they said, you know what, this is so revolutionary. We want to actually do an article about your approach. And I want to share with you a little bit about it. This is a copy of a white paper called Engineering a Service Culture Transformation. And everybody who's on the webinar can get a free copy of this in PDF format just by going to upyourservice.com/HBR, which stands for Harvard Business Review. The very first lesson inside here, rule number 1 is what they call it, is don't start with your customer-facing employees. Instead, involve everyone with a special focus on your internal service providers. Lesson number 1, that's the one we just touched on. But there's more. I'll give you another example of something that is so important that employers often get wrong. It's called rule number 2. Let me read it to you. Don't start by training people on specific service skills, scripts, and procedures. Instead, educate them first to a better understanding of what service excellence really means. Now that goes back to the beginning of our webinar, where we were talking about service excellence as taking the next step to create more value for someone else. When they get that first, then you can give them the scripts and the procedures and the tools as an enabling technology. But if you start out by just saying, okay, here's the script and here's the procedure and here are the standards, and they don't understand that it's all about stepping up to create more value, then you've missed the boat. That's rule number 2. Let me get the other 2 in here. Rule number 3. Don't pilot the change. Instead, go big and go fast to build momentum for the new culture. If you're serious about really building a strong culture of excellence in service, then you can't just pilot it over there in that small group, or let's give it a try over here in this department. You're going to have to tackle this thing full on. And that means, of course, that human resources needs to get buy-in from all around the organization. I understand that. We'll talk about that in a moment. That's not always the easiest thing to do, but that's what you're going to have to take on if you want a cultural transformation. Some organizations are not after a transformation. What they want is just incremental improvement, and that's okay. Then you don't have to do this, everybody do it all at once. But if you're in a situation where you realize my company needs to really make a complete transformation, then you got to go big and go fast and get everybody involved. Rule number 4, don't focus on traditional KPIs during a transformation. In other words, don't hammer your people and say, show me more sales, or get the number of customer complaints down, or instead, you want to focus on the leading indicator. And the leading indicator is, how many new ideas are your people coming up with? How many of those ideas are they working together and say, that's a good idea, let's try it, let's put it into action? And then how many of those ideas that you try are actually producing positive results? If you focus and you measure how many new ideas, are we getting enough new ideas? Are we bringing our people together to generate enough new ideas? Then you'll have a large pool of ideas from which you can choose the best ones to try. Then you can see which of those actually work. So the lagging indicator is the traditional KPIs: sales, customer satisfaction, net promoter score, competitive position. But those come later, after everything that you've done. What you need to do at HR is recognize the importance of creating the environment where people are coming up with the ideas and trying new things. That's what it is you actually need to measure. Valerie, back over to you.
Very well put, Ron. With these four pointers that HR professionals need to keep in mind when you actually start building this culture in the organization. You actually touched upon this next question a bit
Okay.
earlier when you talked about getting everybody's buy-in into it.
Right.
So, getting all the stakeholders on board and driving this cultural change is quite a difficult exercise. And as you said, the talent leaders need to take this ownership upon themselves. So,
Yes.
how would you suggest that these HR professionals address this challenge?
Right. Right. Excellent. Excellent. Again, before I go into the answer to this, I want to make a clear distinction. Achieving excellence in service can be done with a small team. It can be done in a specific situation. It can be done in response to certain complaints you may be getting, or a critical area that has to be improved. But building a culture of service is a much larger undertaking. So you can go after and solve certain service problems, but and we have the technology for that, that's teaching people about service and giving them some tools. But if you want to create the sustainable culture of excellence in service and have that become your organization's competitive advantage so that you attract the best people, you develop the best people, you keep and you retain the best people, then you need to take on a larger project. Let me show you a picture of the kind of thing that I mean. Way back in history, if we go back and the Greek era, when this was built, if you realize what was around this, if you went 5 kilometers in any direction from this building, what you would find is chickens and goats and fishing boats and farms. You didn't find anything like this. So why in the world would they decide we need to build this magnificent structure? And I mean, that structure was, was pretty, let's get a close up here. I mean, it was pretty, it took a lot of time and a lot of people and a lot of resources and a lot of money. And by the way, it didn't look like that. It looked like that. It was inspirational. It was uplifting. It was profound. And you know what? When people went inside, they were themselves challenged and uplifted to become more than they had ever been before. That's why the entire environment was created. And that's what HR needs to take responsibility for creating in the organization if you want to have that sustainable advantage of excellence in service culture. So let's use that same look and feel. Well, the foundation is teaching people how to improve their service. That's in specific situations for specific customers or specific internal service, and you can do that with key principles and tools. That'll give you the foundation. But you also need a roof that's going to protect everybody inside. And we all know that when you have a roof on a house, you don't need many leaks to mess up the house on the inside. So the leadership team itself needs to understand their role. They need to play their function in supporting and giving direction and protection to the service culture. We'll talk more about them in a minute. But then there's also something here in the middle, which you can see are like blocks. And I refer to these as service culture building blocks. So the answer to your question is, you cannot just say, what's the problem? Let's fix it. You have to actually say, how do I build a culture that is embracing, encouraging, reinforcing, rewarding, reminding, communicating, educating, and uplifting all of our employees every day? And the answer to that is you have to take responsibility for building a larger phenomenon than just, let's go fix that service problem. Valerie?
The presentation you talked about building the foundation and then building the roof as well, so that there is a whole family where we can actually instill this culture. And you touched upon this about creating a sustainable culture. So
Yes.
launching these transformative initiatives is one step close to bringing about a major change in an organization.
Correct.
However, sustaining these changes is the key, and it's a more difficult task. What are your tips for sustaining this culture of service excellence from top to bottom, bottom to up, across the organization?
And over time.
Exactly, and duration matters as well.
And I really like the word you used when you said like, this whole family. Because if you think about a family, most families have some kind of a culture. There's, they're either a very loving and warm, supportive family, or they're a very competing family, or it's a family that argues a lot. I mean, whatever it may be, but there's a culture that sustains over time. And how does that happen? Well, let's go back. Let me use some slides again. Let's go back to where we left off and take a look at some of these various components. We already talked about the foundation. That's giving people the tools and the techniques. And, our company, we have a train the trainer approach. So we can actually teach people how to apply service principles in small workshops to solve service problems and do it over and over again. And that's the foundation of continuous service improvement. But what about that roof? Let's take a look at those leaders. If we go here to the leadership team, there are certain behaviors that need to be understood and practiced by people who are in a leadership position. Same as in a family, Valerie. If mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are all in sync with each other about the kind of behaviors that the family should demonstrate, the younger ones are going to learn that from them. If they're all doing crazy different things, or they say one thing but they do something else, then you got a problem in the family. So here are what we call the 7 rules of uplifting service leadership. And today's webinar is not about just service leadership. So we're not going to go into all of these separately. Perhaps we can do that another time. But you can see here that there are certain behaviors, certain expectations of people who are in leadership position that they should perform a certain way to give guidance, to give direction, to give role modeling to the organization itself. Now, let's go to those building blocks, because you're asking, how do we actually do this over time and make it sustainable, and it's difficult, and how do we? Well, you've got to actually put in place everything else that surrounds your people every day. So think about a family again. There's birthday parties. And what else happens? One brother or sister needs help and the other contribute. And what else happens? You might help one of your siblings or one of your cousins or your nieces or your nephews with their homework. And what else happens? And what else happens? And what else happens? For example, we have a daughter who's 23 and she has a boyfriend. And her boyfriend actually comes from a Indian and Pakistani background. And we recently spent time together with him. Well, if you look at the 3rd building block, it's not like we recruited him, she recruited him. But in getting to know him and getting to know his family, that's all part of an orientation process. Now, we're not going to ever say that he's a member of our staff, but he's definitely going to become a member, if they stay together, of our family. And so the way we welcome him during the orientation stage, which is now, it makes a huge difference for setting the culture. And so does everything else that you see. Now, once again, we're not doing a webinar on the 12 building blocks of service culture, which is what these are called. Perhaps we could do another webinar on that sometime. But building a house like this does not happen overnight. This is not something that you snap your fingers. You need one more really critical element, and that's called a service excellence implementation roadmap. In other words, you got to focus on where do we need to improve, build up our internal capability, teach people what they don't know about principles of service, because the school system is not teaching it. Hello. Then you can actually apply and measure things like how many new ideas, how many new actions, how many customer compliments, how many improvements, and then bang, you go to work on building that long-term sustainable service culture. Back over to you, Valerie.
So that roadmap and kind of, breaking down your long-term goals and, breaking it down into sizable chunks that you can, see your own company culture getting built up and sustaining in the long run. And I definitely like the example, the real life examples that you drew in order to explain this, building of the house concept. Diving right into the next question. How can you get these senior leaders to play such an active role driving this initiative? As you mentioned, orientation is a very important founding block in building this culture. Similarly, how do you think the senior leadership can play a more hands-on role in these initiatives?
Yeah, it's a great question, because often, when there's a customer service or an external service problem, people will go to HR and say, get them the training that they need, go fix it, like it's an HR issue, right? Or somebody struggles at an operational level to come up with a new policy or a new procedure or a new piece of technology. But what you're asking is, hold on a second, we got to get the leadership team, that roof of the house, to understand this, what it's going to take, and get on board to support it. Now, over the many years that we've been doing this, I've been teaching this for 3 decades. And what we discovered about 15 years ago was, what is most convincing for senior leaders is when they can see that other organizations have succeeded in doing this. When they can see that other companies, whether it's in their industry or in other industries, have figured out, how do I implement a roadmap? How do I build an environment with building blocks? How do I get my leadership colleagues and I to role model certain behaviors? How do we build that foundation of people who understand and can apply service principles to actually continuously improve service quality? You show them that other companies do it, and then they start to go, well, if they can do it, we can do it. Or they start asking, well, wait a minute, how did they do it? Because when you answer that question, then they're thinking in their own mind, well, ours may not be like that, but we're sort of like that, or we could do it a different way. And so what we've learned to do now with senior leadership teams, and we do this in what's called a 1-day service leadership workshop. We say to an organization, get your leaders in the room and let us come and show them how other companies have done this. In fact, next week, I'm doing this in Mumbai for a very large bank. And then I'll be the very next day, teaching more to other in a more public environment. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about here. I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with a company called NIIT. I mean, it's an Indian legend. But here's an example of where they took one of our principles, which we call the 6 levels of service, from criminal to basic to expected to desired to surprising to unbelievable. And notice what they've done. They've translated it into language that makes sense in their particular industry for their team of several thousand people. Now, when the bank looks at this, they may not use the same language, but they realize that we could come up with our own language, or the hospital, or the retail organization, or the hotel, or whomever. It's the important, I see an example, we could do it our way. Here's another one. This is a telecommunications company in the Philippines that has taken a lot of our principles, and then they've made them colorful and interactive, and they've made it enjoyable. And now your culture may not be so fun and friendly. You may say, oh, if I did that with my people, they wouldn't take us seriously because we manufacture truck engines. Okay, I get it. But you see that this culture did it their way. Now, you could do it your way. You see, for example, here's an automotive company in Australia, and they took that same principle that I shared with you, and they actually put it on the stairs. So they use the physical environment as a way of ongoingly communicating and reinforcing for their team members so that it becomes a common service language. Oh, that's interesting. Here's another one. This is an Australian insurance company that created a 6-week festival where each week was focused on one of those 6 levels of service. And remember, that's just one of the service principles called the 6 levels of service. But look at this. You've got a company, one of our clients, who said we're going to devote 6 entire weeks to focusing on those 6 words and what they mean. Oh my gosh, by the end of those 6 weeks, every single person in the organization absolutely remembered and knew what those were about. Let's take a look at something like Singapore Airlines, where their vision is service even other airlines talk about. Oh my God, the emotional impact on the staff is they feel proud. They want to go show the world who we are. They want to demonstrate that this little country can make a great big impact in a global industry. How'd they do that? With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. Okay, leadership team, what are your 6 words, or 4 or 7? And they go, well, we have a mission statement that nobody remembers, or we have a corporate vision on the wall that's not very inspiring. Seeing this kind of example can be uplifting and inspiring for them. Here's a couple more. I'm sure many people will recognize this gentleman. His name is Rajendra Pawar. He was the founder of NIIT. He's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the CEO of NIIT Technologies. And this is when we actually invented their engaging service vision, which is simply 4 ideas. New ideas, more value. Rajiv Pawar, by the way, is also the founder of NASCOM, which I'm sure is, it's an Indian legend. And you can just see that it's that kind of leadership involvement. So then you can ask a leadership team on your company, hey, are we that involved? Are we that committed? I'll just show you a couple more examples. This is a company in the United States whose vision is, our world is serving yours. Oh my God, our whole world, the purpose of our being, our world is about serving your world. Guess what industry they're in, Valerie? I'll tell you. They are the world's largest manufacturer of cheese.
Wow.
Now, wait a minute. If a cheese manufacturer can have a vision like this, don't give me an excuse why your company doesn't have a great one. A few more to wrap this up. Here's a hospitality firm where they say, we make each moment matter. Oh, isn't that where you want to go on vacation? Or here's that telecommunications company again that says, we got to connect it. Delighted customers, satisfied shareholders, engaged employees. We're going to call this our circle of happiness, so that we can communicate it to and teach it to everybody in our organization. And one more, this is a operating theater hospital sterilization equipment company. Get that. And they're dedicated to providing one-of-a-kind service. Why? Because a small clinic may need something completely different than an emergency room, who may need something completely different than a large operating theater, who may need something completely different. And there you go. Those are just some examples of other companies. When you show your leadership team those other company examples, and lots of them, and you show them how those demonstrate that architecture of building the house really happening around the world, then a leadership team says, hey, you know what? We can do that too. Let's get to work. Who's going to be involved? What's our roadmap? What goes first? What goes second? What's my job?
Exactly.
Back over to you, Valerie.
When you turn over the question to, oh, they did that, and get past that and think about the steps that your competitors or maybe your peers have taken, or as HR professionals, maybe other departments, you can learn from others, other teams, how they have developed their team culture, and then translated it back into your own role as a talent leader. And you did share some examples of companies that have done this right. What are some of the most compelling, any other examples or case studies that you would like to share before we go on to our audience questions?
Yes. And the question makes me smile, because you can only imagine, after 30 years of doing this, with 2,000 workshop leaders that we have certified in companies around the world, who in turn have taught these materials and these principles and tools to hundreds of thousands of people. I'm on 100 airplane flights every year. So the number of different companies, different industries, different situations, different groups, different leaders. I mean, when you say, have you got some examples? If you go to our website, upyourservice.com, and you put / and then the word blog, B-L-O-G, oh my gosh, we have hundreds of articles there describing things that we've done in different situations. But you can also find at our website something pretty special, and that is that we've got a recorded webinar called Global Best Practices in Building Service Culture, which is available for anybody to be able to go in and see. Just go to upyourservice.com and search around. You're definitely going to find it. And in that entire hour is just example after example after example, not very, very short like I just showed you a moment ago, but we'll say, for example, here's the company, here's the situation they were facing, this is the result they wanted to achieve, let us show you how they did it. Okay, now let's show you another one and another one and another one. There's also another webinar that's on the same location called How to Lead a Customer Service Culture Transformation. And this would be very helpful for anyone who's in an HR position, because you don't have to be the CEO to lead the transformation. You could lead it just within your own team. You could lead it within your own department. You could lead it in a certain situation. And certainly as HR, you can lead it from a creating better employee experience standpoint. And then one more, you'll find something there called the 6 disruptors of customer experience. And that's an important one, because what's going on in the world in terms of technology, in terms of omni-channel service, in terms of greater digital expectations, in terms of globalization, in terms of different generations having different expectations, and the labor force having very different expectations, we would kind of put all of these in context and show how to tackle that. The website, again, for that, for anybody who's interested, is simply upyourservice.com. Back over to you, Valerie.
Well, you shared so many examples already, and and you mentioned these all other webinars and tools that talent leaders can take up on their own time.
Right.
So now we have some time to address some of the audience questions. I'm just going to ask a couple to you, Ron.
Okay.
Bansari is asking, you've talked about service culture and the importance of it. I think Bansari's question is about the metrics that you can use to measure the success of the service culture, and how do you kind of measure during some time, over a period of time. So
okay, very good, very good. Thank you, Ansari. I touched on this, but I'm going to give it a little more explanation. And you can find a very dedicated presentation about this just by going to Google and type in Ron Kaufman, show me the money. Because that's kind of what he's asking, right? Let's be honest. If we're talking business, like, hey, show me the ROI. That's obviously what the financial people are going to ask, or, when am I going to see results? You got to answer that. Ron Kaufman, show me the money. Let me explain. There are certain outcomes that business leaders want and need. Increase in top line revenue, increase in bottom line profit, increase in shareholder value, increase in market share, increase in share of market, in terms of share of wallet. You want increases. Okay, that's the ultimate objective for business. But it happens, you only know if you've made it after all the service that you provided. So that's why we call it a lagging indicator. What would come before that? How would you know that you're going to get the money? You're going to get the ultimate objectives? Well, let's look at your scores. If your satisfaction score is going up, if your loyalty index is going up, if your employee engagement score and satisfaction is going up, if your net promoter score is going up, if your wallet allocation score is going up, right? If all these indicators are going up, these survey and score results, you're going to get the money. But wait a minute. You don't do those surveys every day, do you? And you don't look at the reports that they generate every day. So what would be a leading indicator that would let you know you're going to get the survey results, which is a leading indicator that would let you know you're going to get the money? Well, that would be positive compliments and positive feedback from your customers and from colleagues to each other. So what does that mean? Thumbs up, pat on the back, attaboy, positive social media, lots of good reviews, good comments coming from the people that your organization serves. Because if you're getting enough compliments coming in, you're going to get the higher scores when you run the survey, and you're going to get the money. So now we've got the money, the survey, the compliments. Let's go one more step. How do you get a compliment? What does it take for a customer or a colleague, one to another, to say, that was great, I really appreciate that? Well, you have to do something that's not just expected. If all your people do is follow the operating procedure, do what's in the manual, do what they've always done, that's not going to generate a compliment. You need somebody who can look at a situation, think about it another way, have an aha insight, come up with an idea, and then take action on the idea. And then if it's a good idea and it's a good action, it will lead to the compliment. Okay. So then what's the driver of this whole thing? It's not the money at the end. That's the end result. The driver is, as I said before, are you creating a culture where people are generating enough good new ideas? Are they looking at things from fresh perspective, working with each other, talking with each other, brainstorming with each other, coming up with a list of ideas? Yeah. Now, not every idea is a good idea, Valerie. We know that. So you've got to generate enough ideas so that the team can look at them and go, okay, let's look. Okay, this 50%, they suck. Let's get rid of those. What about this other 50%? Well, that's a good one, but we can make it better. That one, it's a good idea, but it would be hard to implement. So then you boil it down. Now you got maybe 3 ideas that are worth trying. Put them into action. Did they work? How will you know? Did you get a compliment? Are you getting enough compliment? How would you know? So back all the way back to the question of what do I measure? You should be tracking number of new ideas generated by every single department in the organization, and do that on a weekly or monthly basis. And you know what? You don't track it at all right now, do you? Yeah. You have no goal, you have no target, you have no metric, you have no measure, and yet now when that number starts growing on a month-to-month basis, then the culture, the dedication to continuous improvement of service experience, service excellence, service quality, the culture is getting stronger. How do you know? You're getting more new ideas.
Correct. So it all boils down to generating new ideas, and that's where all the measurement and the metrics start. I think that was a very holistic answer to Bansari's question. I think I do have time for the rest of the questions.
Come on.
So the next one is how to drive. I think they are asking how to drive the service excellence culture internally within the organization. I think you touched a little bit upon this when we talked about external and internal. So
fabulous question. What's the name of the person who submitted the question?
I think it's Bansari again, actually.
Oh, sorry. Well, you're contributing wonderfully. Thank you. Okay. Let's go back to something that I mentioned earlier about internal customer. I hate that phrase. I hate it. And here's why. The moment one department thinks of themselves as the internal customer of another department, it can lead them to take sort of an entitled position like, I'm the customer. It's your job to serve me. But inside of every organization, the truth is that there are things that both sides could do that would result in a better service experience. I give you an example. One of the classic areas of internal complaint is between sales and finance, right? Sales is always complaining that finance doesn't pay the whatever on time, or, finance makes it hard, so finance doesn't pay my petty cash, or finance doesn't do my bonus, or finance doesn't do my overtime, or whatever it may be, right? But finance is always complaining about sales because they submit the paperwork and it's incomplete, or they didn't put all the signatures that were needed, or they didn't provide the original documentation. So then you got these two parties kind of pointing the finger at each other. And I got to ask here, wait. Are these customer and service provider, or are these partners? Because if they would say to each other, look, we're inside the company, we're service partners. So therefore, sales would actually have to ask itself the question, what could we do differently that would create more value for our colleagues in finance? What new procedure, what steps, what hygiene check, what actions can we take that would make it easier for our friends in finance? And boy, the friends in finance could give you some ideas and some suggestions, but you guys got to come up with that. Boom. When you do that, it creates more value for them. Oh, guess what? That's going to make it so much easier for them to create more value for you. Now, most of the people on this call are from human resources position, so you must understand what I'm saying. There's so many things that people can complain about the HR department, but you know so well that you need them not to think about themselves as I'm the customer of HR. You have to serve me. We're partners. We're partners with each other. And the easier you make it for us to serve you by taking actions that create value for HR, then we can put our attention not on chasing you, not on complaining about you, not on fixing things that you should have fixed for yourself, not for informing you a third time about something that you could have read about or paid attention the first time we brought it to you, but we can instead then focus on more value-added things like helping you think about your career, working with you and your boss so that you actually get more challenging assignments,
Exactly.
helping to think about where you could be assigned elsewhere within the company to get more cross-functional experience. Those things I just mentioned would create a lot of value for the employees. But if the employees are not behaving as good partners, then all the HR time is going to be sucked up because they think of themselves as internal customers.
Correct. Yeah, I think that answered Bansari's question completely. I'm going to take the time to get to two more questions.
Good.
We have a few more minutes.
Let's do it.
Mingy asks, so Mingy, in their organization, they've tried a few initiatives to motivate their staff members. However, Mingy says that nothing has changed. The environment is toxic, and how would, so as an HR leader, I think Mingy is tackling with that issue where, trying to get the stakeholders on board. So what are your suggestions to them?
Yeah, I'm going to pop up one of our slides again. Mindy, thank you for the question. And I just want to point out something here. You can see the slide? Valerie?
Yes.
Yeah. When you did something to, quote, motivate, then you probably came up with something in this building block right here called service recognition and rewards. You came up with some kind of a pat on the back. Maybe it was a bonus. Maybe it was a little contest that would have a winner, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you even use this building block over here where you put their picture in the newsletter, or you put them up on the bulletin board or the intranet as the employee of the month, something like that. But Mindy, you don't get a house from 2 bricks, right? You actually have got to take responsibility for the whole environment. And so if the environment is toxic, and I just want to acknowledge you for being candid about that, if that's the way things are inside right now, then we got to step back and look at what is so and recognize that some practices inside the company right now are actually counterproductive from the standpoint of building a sustainable culture of continuous improvement of service and excellence. Then we got to go look at and use this model, this house, as kind of a diagnostic tool to say, well, how do we do this? How do we do that? How are we doing that? How are we doing this? And what you'll recognize is that there's some areas where you could make a small change that could make a significant improvement. There's some areas that may need a big change, but you're not going to tackle them right away because it's going to take too much time. But you could at least say to the employees, look, guys, we realize we have an issue here. We're going to commit ourselves to 12 months to improve this culture. There are some things we see that we could fix right away. We're going to get on it. That would be your quick wins. That's the low-hanging fruit. And then there are other things we realize are very important, and we're going to commit ourselves to work on those in Q2 or Q3 or Q4. And then you get started. Because even if you only do things that are quick win, and they see that, well, you did something, you did make that change that you promised to do, and they see that it's part of the larger plan. It's part of the bigger picture of actually committing to change the culture. Then they can get on board and believe you. Then you can ask them to contribute in some way. Then you can actually get everybody on board together in building a house like that does require everybody's participation, not just HR.
Very true, very true. And that actually kind of makes complete sense when you let the people know what your long-term goal is in these initiatives. So I hope that helps you, Mengi, with that answer, which takes us to the final question
Yeah.
from Sanyo. Sanyo is asking, related to his organization. He says, we are in the process of building a culture across our newly formed organization. So, what is the first thing that we should take? First thing that we should focus on as HR reps in a new organization? I think that's a very different question.
Well, it's a different question, but it can be helpfully answered, if you will, by again going back to those building blocks that I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
The first building block is called a common service language.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just to reference something else that was already presented in the webinar, one of our principles is what we call the 6 levels of service: criminal, basic, expected, desired, surprising, and unbelievable. And it looks like stairs. But the idea is not just that it's stairs and you step up. You have to also accept that the stairs are always going down like an escalator, because what was unbelievable yesterday, today it maybe just be a nice surprise. Tomorrow it's what I desire. A week later, it's expected. 2 weeks after that, that's just basic. And then one day, if you don't do it, you're a criminal.
Correct.
So the idea of continuously stepping up through these 6 levels, well, that applies to sales. It applies to marketing. It applies to manufacturing or design of new product. It applies to customer service. It applies internally to HR and to finance. And you get my point. Otherwise,
Okay.
You're going to have marketing with their language. You're going to have sales with their language. You're going to have HR with their language. You're going to have production with their language. And they don't have a common service language.
Mm-hmm.
That comes first. Our principles provide a common language of service that you in HR can help build throughout the organization by showing them that this language applies to everybody.
Okay.
And then the second building block is also linguistic, because human beings are the animals who create our reality with language. We're the only species that can invent the future, make promises, make requests, make offers, make declarations that invent the future. It all happens in language. So get a great, what we refer to as an engaging service vision, something that inspires your people, that they're proud of, they want to be part of that, and get those 2 pieces in place right, and then you can work on building everything else to make it happen.
Right. That is, I think, an excellent way to close out our Q&A session. Going back to starting off with the right language that translates directly to the employees in your organization. I think that's a really great takeaway, Ron. So with that, I would like to wrap up this webcast. And I would like to thank our partner for today, Right Selection.
Right Selection.
Yes. And also, of course, Ron, thank you for the insightful and engaging pointers that you brought to the discussion and your presentation style. It was wonderful having you on People Matters webinar. Meanwhile, I would urge all of our audience members to share your feedback in the survey link provided in the chat session, because your input definitely matters to us, and we will always be back with a new webcast. We have many more exciting sessions in store for you, so stay tuned. With that, I'm Valerie with People Matters, concluding today's webcast. Thank you and have a great day.
Valerie, you did a great job. Thank you.